In this video, we will look at a few examples that will let us practice thinking about congruent triangles. In example A, it says, are the two triangles below congruent? Now remember what the word congruent means. It means that the two objects have all the same measurements. So that means when we're thinking about triangles, we're checking to make sure that all the pairs of angles are the same and all the side lengths are the same. If we look at these two triangles, we notice that there's one pair of angles marked the same, and a second pair of angles marked the same, and a third pair of angles marked the same. So that means that all angles are congruent, or really all pairs of angles are congruent. Next, we can look at the side lengths and notice there's one side the same, and then a second side the same, and finally a third side the same. Therefore, because all angles are the same and all sides are congruent, the triangles are congruent because all their measurements are the same. So the answer is yes, the two triangles are congruent. Let's go on to example B. In order to say that triangle ABD, so that's the triangle on the left, is congruent to triangle ABC, so that's the triangle on the right, you must determine that the three corresponding angles and sides are congruent. Which pair of sides is congruent by the reflexive property? So the reflexive property is when you're saying that anything is the same as itself. So in this situation, you should look for, are there any angles or sides that appear in both triangles? And yes, there is. This side in the middle, AB, is shared by both triangles. Therefore, the AB that's in triangle ABD is congruent to the AB that's in triangle ABC. So that's a pair of sides that's congruent by the reflexive property. Looking at example C, this one says, if all three pairs of angles for two given triangles are congruent, does that mean that the triangles are congruent? So let's think about that. What if we had two equilateral triangles? Now you should remember equilateral triangles have the property that all three angles are 60 degrees each. And that's because an equilateral triangle has to have all three angles the same, and in order to add up to 180 degrees, they each have to be 60. Now, that means any equilateral triangle will have all three angles 60 degrees. So in these two triangles here, all three pairs of angles are congruent because they're each 60 degrees. But these two triangles are clearly not congruent. The one on the right is much bigger than the one on the left. Even though I didn't put in any markings, I could say this is all 1 unit, 1 unit, and 1 unit long, and this one is maybe 3. So the triangles are clearly not congruent. They have the same angles, but not the same sides. So the answer to this question would be no. Knowing only information about the angles is not enough to say that the triangles are congruent. You need to have information about the sides as well.